Okay, so Doug and I were working on something else and looking at some outcome stuff, riveting stuff on a Thursday before lunchtime and before you go on a nice little short kind of expedition for work. And I thought I'm going to rope Doug into having this conversation because this is how you started our meeting today with, I've been on a tear talking about outcomes with everybody. And people are going, why doesn't anyone else in the out-of-home care community do this? And you were on the ABC radio talking about your outcomes. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. What's been the response, Doug, as I asked you the most leading biased question? How have people responded to you talking about feedback-informed treatment for intervention therapy?
I can see why you didn't let me prepare for this. Uh, well, that's a tricky one, Will. So general public, I don't think they care. They're just like generally saying, this is great. What you're doing is amazing. You put a lot of work into it. It's awesome. People need this. Keep doing it. Maybe in the clinical field, I get a lot of type responses. But I also get people like clinical therapists and psychologists who are on board with this going, see, Doug, I told you this was therapeutic. Because
Yes.
I'm not an accredited mental health professional. And then, like I told you before we started recording, I've been talking to some of my mentors who are veterans within the out-of-home care sector in Victoria, and they're telling me that not even the most trauma-informed, responsive out-of-home care agencies can provide evidence-based outcomes on reaching therapeutic goals. So yeah, it's good. So sometimes I worry that I'm going too strong with this because I keep saying providing a youth wellbeing service where we use adventure therapy approach, mostly do it outdoors. It's all about being fun, safe, and useful. And by the way, we use an evidence-based approach to tracking out outcomes to ensure that we get therapeutic results. And I worry that I'm coming on a bit too strong there because no one else is doing it, or not no one else is doing it, but like no one else in the out-of-home care, like child safety agencies are using this type of thing. They use other things, but most of it's not evidence-based. Not that I believe that makes me better, but it's just sometimes I worry that I'm coming on too strong with it. But the feedback, I think, generally is keep doing what you're doing. And I will say to anyone that listens, why are you not recording your outcomes? Because I think the feedback that I get from the young people definitely makes me try harder and is a really good way of ensuring what I'm doing is useful, which is number one. But then number two, I can turn around and say to people, well, these are my outcomes. This is my evidence to why I do it the way I do it.
And what we just crunched, and with the research project we're doing, it's not 10,000 clients, so your outcomes move. And I had to tell you early on, stop looking at your data. Stop, just work with the kids and work with their individual data and stop crunching it. But we've talked about crunching it at the end of the year, and it was really impressive and above average effect size. And all this nerdy language was above pretty basic worldwide targets of what would be effective therapy. And those numbers change as we add more cases, and that will move around. But that must be really encouraging as someone who was resistant to the word therapy to be measuring therapeutic outcomes and going, oh, that's pretty good.
Yep. It's integral now to everything I do. So.
Yeah. And one of the things Daniel and I have talked about doing, and I wanted to ask you this question because we've had people join, start measuring outcomes, and then also go, you know what, this is not for me and not for my clients, and that's cool. Or this doesn't feel right to capture what we think we're doing in this work. So I wonder, what do you think has worked particularly well for you that made you go, yeah, I'm not going to look back, and this is going to become part of my everyday practice?
It's helped me have a bit more, I hate using this word, having a bit more intention with everything I do. It's made me, or not made me, but it's been part of helping me to step in to what I'm doing, if that makes sense. So rather than think that I'm providing an outdoor experience for kids, it's now that I'm purposely using my skill set as an adventure guide and a youth worker to increase someone's well-being through using the skills and the strategies that I have, so that the rest of their challenges in their life become easier to deal with.
Yeah.
And it provides an accountability and a framework to do that. So I'm not just guessing. And then with the ORS, so the biggest challenge for me was doing the first ORS on the first session. And now I do that, and it's helped me really reach an agreement with the young person as to why we're doing this.
Yeah.
So it's full transparency. There's no, this kid just thinks we're doing fun stuff, and I'm like secretly trying to make their life better. It's like, no,
ninja.
Yeah. we're here together, and we're agreeing as to why we're doing this. And it's a big confidence thing, just because it feels weird doing the ORS with them to start with before you have a relationship. But I found just, accepting that I'm going to feel very uncomfortable and that they feel uncomfortable, but just making that a normal thing and saying, this is what we're doing, and agreeing to why we're going to be doing it together. And if they turn around then and say, I'm not doing your silly feedback stuff, then I'm like, okay, that's fine. But every new client that I've started with, and I introduce it properly, they're on board with it, because I think it's a way of them understanding that they're the boss and that they get to dictate how this looks rather than the other way around.
Oh, that is awesome. And we need to keep talking about this stuff, because everyone's going to have their own way they introduce, and these things, and all that information is so useful. That is awesome. One more thing?
Add one more thing to your question before about feedback around using fit from people, especially young people that get funding through the National Disability Insurance Scheme here in Australia, but it also works for other fundings. Is parents and case managers often have trouble advocating for their young person to do adventure therapy, especially if it's with a non-therapist. But if we can then provide the outcomes as to what we achieved in session, it's showing how useful it is, and it's actually getting results in terms of funding bodies agreeing to fund my service. So,
and yeah, and
that's not why you should use fit, but it's definitely an added bonus, especially for parents looking for services.
Yeah, and we're measuring that well-being and the engagement in the service. And one of the big problems is people don't want to throw money at a service the young person's not engaged in. So when we can show engagement, it makes a really big deal. And part of that is starting with, hey kid, let's figure out what this is going to look like together, and we're going to monitor to make sure we're always on track.
Yeah. I just keep learning and keep growing with that.
Yeah. Awesome. And it's cool if we're off track, just let me know and we'll do something different.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Thank you for the impromptu webcast, Doug. I'll get your release form signed later.
Sure. Thanks.